everybody, thanks for coming back to another episode of Cooking with Kellen. Tonight we're gonna make beef bourguignon, which is basically a fancy beef stew made with red wine. Typically it's made with burgundy, which is bourguignon means burgundy, but tonight we're gonna be cooking it with some Cabernet Sauvignon. Doesn't have to be anything fancy, just make sure you get a bottle that you would drink whenever you're cooking. Doesn't need to be, $2.99, but it also doesn't need to be $100 a bottle. So just get something that you like. Otherwise, it's basically like I said, a fancy beef stew. So everything else is pretty regular, carrots, onions. You can serve it on potatoes, serve it on buttered noodles, over rice, or even just in a bowl. Many ways to serve it, but with the cool weather, I think it's perfect time to have a stew, something delicious to warm us up. Let me show you how I make mine. Not traditional, not Julia Child's recipe, but this is how I make it and it turns out pretty delicious. Let me show you how. And hey, thanks again for coming back to watch, I appreciate it. All right, first thing, I'm gonna walk you guys through the ingredients. Here, of course, for a beef stew, we need to have beef. I got a beef chuck roast. We're gonna start out cooking it in some bacon. Chop up the bacon, render the fat, cook the beef in it, and then save the bacon and add that later. We're gonna add some bay leaves here. Got some thyme, some fresh thyme. We're gonna need beef broth, some tomato paste, carrots, onions, mushrooms, garlic, and pearl onions. Now you can buy these fresh and sit there and peel everything if you want. Or one of the tricks is to buy frozen, which have already been peeled and cleaned, and you just pop those in. Very easy. And of course, wine. Now I mentioned you don't need to buy a $100 bottle, just something that you could drink that's decent. So I'm gonna be using this Cabernet Sauvignon. And that's what we're gonna start with. So let me get prepped and we'll start cooking. All right, we're gonna start here with our bacon. We're gonna just dice this up into little pieces so they come out little sticks, kind of like that. They're called lardons. And we'll move on from there. Let me show you. Okay, we have our bacon all cut up. You can see here, cut them in little slices like that so they come out little lardons. Now we're gonna get our meat going. So this is our chuck roast. You want to kind of cut everything where the natural muscle fat lines are. So I'm going to cut here, here, here. And you want to make them about 2-inch pieces. You don't want any tiny small ones because it's cooked so long. You don't want it to be overdone. So you want to cut them kind of big. So I'm going to do that and then I'll show you the next step. We got the meat all cut up. You can see I trimmed away some of the fat, but not all of it. Still a good amount there. Helps with the flavoring, and it'll break down whenever it cooks. So that's the meat. Now we're gonna move on to the vegetables. All right, we got our carrots ready to go. You can probably tell I've already peeled them. We're gonna get those cut up. Here's our carrot all cut up, ready to go. We're gonna put that to the side. Start on our garlic. Garlic is chopped, ready to go. We're gonna move on to the onions now. Now, I like my onions whenever I'm using it like this in this type of stew. I wanna cook them pretty small because I want them to kind of cook out. I don't want anybody to bite into a big piece of onion. These ones will kind of cook away, and because it cooks for so long, they almost melt away and the flavor just becomes throughout the stew. Really delicious, savory flavor. So I'm gonna cut these pretty small. Mushrooms are done, washed, sliced. You can see I cut them kind of thick here. When they cook down, they shrink down a lot whenever they release that water, so I wanted to make them kind of thick. Mushrooms are ready. I think we're ready to start cooking. We're ready to start cooking our bacon. You guys can see here I have a large Dutch oven. It's a Le Creuset cast iron enameled pot. So we're gonna go ahead and start with our bacon. Render the fat, it's already preheated. Want to make sure you hear that sizzle. continue to cook that until it's nice and crispy and most of the fat is rendered out. Okay, bacon is just about done. I'm going to go ahead and remove that with a slotted spoon. We want to keep all that fat in there so we can brown the meat in that. Now you see all this brown stuff on the bottom, don't be afraid of that, that's not burnt. That is what we call a fond, and that's how we start building this flavor from the bottom up that we're going to put into this whole stew. When we put the wine in, that is going to deglaze the pan and get all those brown bits up and put awesome flavor into the stew. So set that bacon to the side, grab your meat. You know, I'm going to actually soak up just a little bit of this. That's probably too much fat. We just want about 3 tablespoons or so in there. So we'll just soak up that. Be careful. And I have lightly salted and peppered this meat. We don't want too much salt because the bacon fat's already pretty salty. All right, let that brown. I'm gonna salt and pepper this side of it. Flip it over, let it brown on the other side, and we'll keep going. All right, we're gonna flip this meat over. See, it's nice and brown, that's perfect. Good brown on that. Brown is flavored. Now in this other pan I have back here, I'm gonna start the mushrooms. Already got this pan heating. About 2 tablespoons of olive oil. We got a knob of butter here. We'll let that start melting. Alright. Toss our mushrooms in. Now we're just going to let those brown. It'll probably take about 10-15 minutes or so. We're going to get a nice dark brown flavor on those. Color and flavor. Okay, this meat is brown. We're going to go ahead and take that out. All right, set that to the side. Now we're going to go right in with our onion. There's plenty of fat still in there. Get those onions going. Now I'm not adding any salt or pepper to these because we already did to the meat that was in here. You don't want it to be too salty yet. You can always add later whenever you taste it. Now I'm going to go in with the carrots. Let those cook as well. I'm going to go ahead and add my garlic in here. I'm going to cook that just for a minute just to take off the raw flavor. You certainly don't want to burn it. We're also going to add in say 1.5 tablespoons, 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. And you want to put it in at this stage so that it can kind of caramelize on the bottom of the pan. Let that cook for about 2 minutes. Now we're going to add our thyme, our fresh thyme. So what you do, you hold it from the top, pull down, and the leaves just come right off. We'll add about 4 or 5 stems here, twigs. I'm going to go ahead and add our beef back in with, of course, all the accumulated juices that's been sitting there. Give that a nice mix. All right, so let's go ahead and turn that off and add those mushrooms in. Then we're going to add our bacon back in. Nice crispy bacon. Give that all a mix. add in our red wine. Just about the whole bottle. I might have drank just a little bit of that. Got to make sure it was good. Alright, turn that up, let that come back up to heat. Now you don't want this totally covered in liquid, but this is not enough. You want at least the meat to be covered. So whatever the wine does not cover or fill, we're gonna pour in some beef stock. You don't need to spend forever making this. You can certainly buy something canned. Yeah, I'll go ahead and put the rest. So about like that. Give that a stir. We're gonna let that come up to a boil. Then we'll get it in the oven. You can see here it's come to a nice boil, rolling simmer. We're gonna add in those onions. They're frozen, no need to defrost them. Our 2 bay leaves. Give that a stir. Just make sure everything's incorporated. You're gonna push your meat down into the sauce, the juice. Put the lid on that. Pop that in the 250-degree oven. There we go. We'll let that go for about an hour and a half. Okay, I just pulled this out of the oven. I put it back on the stove, got it back up to boiling. It went for about 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes, a little bit longer than expected. I did hike the heat up on the oven up to 300, 250 was not cutting it. Brought it up to a boil. What I'm gonna do now is skim off all the fat from the top here. You can see it's all pooling around there, so I'm gonna get all that extra fat out and then let it sit here and reduce for probably 20-25 minutes. I'll let it boil away like this so it gets nice and thick and concentrated and reduced. Final product, hope you guys can see it. Not sure about the angle of the camera. Sure looks like a good bowl of stew to me. Oh yeah. It's tender, has so much flavor, real depth of flavor because we built it from the very beginning, building that fond on the bottom of the pot. Hope you guys give this a try. Oh man, that's good. I hope you guys like this video. If you did, make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you can see whenever any new upcoming videos are posted. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you soon.